The stars had always been beautiful to Captain Daniel Morris. He had spent 30 years of his life sailing between them, watching distant suns grow larger in his viewport until they became homes for humanity. But tonight, the stars brought him no comfort. Tonight, they were witnesses to murder. The colony world of New Haven burned below him. Orange and red fires spread across continents that had taken humanity 50 years to terraform. Cities that had housed families, schools, hospitals, and dreams were now nothing but ash and rubble. The Velthary warships hung in orbit like vultures, their weapons still warm from the slaughter they had just committed. Daniel stood frozen on the bridge of the Earth's vessel Resolute. His hands gripped the metal railing so hard that his knuckles had turned white. Behind him, his crew worked in stunned silence. Some were crying, others stared at their screens with empty eyes, unable to process what they were seeing. Lieutenant Maria Reyes was the first to speak. Her voice cracked as she read from her console. "Sir, I am picking up distress signals from the southern continent. There are survivors in the underground shelters, maybe 3,000 people. They are asking for rescue." Daniel turned to look at the Velthary fleet. 14 massive cruisers, each one carrying enough firepower to destroy a small moon. The Resolute was a patrol vessel, designed for escort missions and light combat. Against those ships, they would last perhaps 30 seconds. Commander Nathan Cole stepped up beside him. Nathan had served with Daniel for 15 years. They had survived pirates, border skirmishes, and one very unpleasant encounter with a Kasari slaver fleet. But Nathan had never looked as old as he did in this moment. "Daniel," Nathan said quietly, "Earth Command is ordering all vessels to retreat to the Sol system. They say the Confederation Council is handling the situation through diplomatic channels." A bitter laugh escaped Daniel's throat. "Diplomatic channels. Nathan, there are 70,000 dead humans on that planet. 70,000. And the Confederation is going to handle it through diplomatic channels?" Behind them, Ensign Lucy Patterson let out a sob. She was young, barely 22 years old. This was her first deep space assignment. Daniel knew that her parents had emigrated to New Haven just 3 years ago. Her mother had sent her a message last week talking about the garden she was planting. That garden was ash now. Her mother was gone. Sir Maria said, her voice steadier now, but still fragile. "We are receiving a transmission from the Velthary command ship. They are ordering us to leave the system immediately, or we will be considered hostile." Daniel felt something shift inside him. It was a feeling he had kept buried for a very long time. A feeling that humanity had tried to suppress ever since they joined the Galactic Confederation 112 years ago. They had been told to be peaceful. They had been told to be patient. They had been told that the elder races knew best, and that humanity was still young and needed guidance. They had been told that cooperation was the only path forward. And where had that path led them? To this moment. To watching their people burn while alien warships demanded that they run away with their tails between their legs. "Maria," Daniel said slowly, "open a channel to Admiral Catherine Walsh, secure encryption. And then, I want you to begin recording. Make sure this message reaches every human vessel, every colony, every person who has ever called Earth their home." Nathan grabbed his arm. "Daniel, what are you doing? If you broadcast something inflammatory, the Confederation will use it against us. They will say we are the aggressors." Daniel turned to face his old friend. "Nathan, look at that planet. Look at what they did. And then look at those Velthary ships. They are not even pretending to be sorry. They killed 70,000 of our people. And they are sitting there laughing at us because they know we cannot do anything about it." He pulled his arm free gently. "For 112 years, we have played by their rules. We have bowed our heads and accepted our place at the bottom of the galactic order. We have watched them carve up worlds that we terraformed, take credit for technology that we developed, and treat our people like disposable labor. And every time we complained, the Confederation told us to be patient, to wait our turn, to trust in the system." Daniel looked around at his crew. Every eye was on him now. Even Lucy had stopped crying, watching her captain with something new, kindling in her gaze. The system just murdered 70,000 of our people and called it a border dispute. I am done trusting the system. And I think every human in this galaxy is about to feel the same way. The Channel 2 Admiral Walsh opened. Her face appeared on the main screen, lined with grief and fury. She was sitting in the command center at Earth Defense Headquarters, surrounded by other admirals and generals who looked equally devastated. "Captain Morris," Catherine said, "I have been watching the feeds from New Haven. I know what you are feeling right now." "Every person in this room feels the same," Admiral Daniel replied. "What are our orders? Real orders? Not the diplomatic nonsense that Earth Command is broadcasting for the Confederation to hear." Catherine was silent for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was cold and hard as steel. "For 100 years we have shown the galaxy only what we wanted them to see. Primitive ships, outdated weapons, technology that made us look harmless. We did this because we believed that appearing weak would keep us safe from the elder races who might see us as a threat." She leaned forward, and Daniel saw something dangerous flash in her eyes. "We were wrong. Our weakness did not protect us. It made us targets. And now 70,000 of our people have paid the price for our mistake." The Admiral stood up from her chair. "Captain Morris, I am activating Protocol Omega. All human vessels are to return to designated rally points. All colonies are to begin emergency preparations. And all personnel with clearance level 7 or above are to report for immediate briefing on projects that officially do not exist." Daniel felt his heart begin to beat faster. He had heard rumors about Protocol Omega, whispers about secret facilities hidden in asteroid fields, stories about weapons that made Velthri plasma cannons look like children's toys. He had always assumed they were just stories, told by bitter veterans who wanted to believe that humanity had some hidden ace up their sleeve. "Admiral," he said carefully, "are you saying what I think you were saying?" Catherine smiled, and there was no warmth in it, no mercy, only the cold promise of retribution. "The galaxy thinks they know what humanity is capable of, Captain. They are about to learn how wrong they were. And when we are finished, they will never make the mistake of underestimating us again." She raised her hand in salute. "Get your people home, Captain Morris. The war for humanity's survival begins now." The channel closed, and Daniel turned to face his crew. For the first time since the attack began, he saw hope in their eyes. Not much, just a spark. But it was enough. "You heard the Admiral," he said quietly. "Set course for the Sol system. Maximum speed." As the Resolute turned away from the burning world below, Daniel took one last look at New Haven. He burned the image into his memory. Every flame, every cloud of smoke, every silent scream of the people who had died there, he would carry this memory with him for the rest of his life. And so would every human in the galaxy. The Velthri had pushed humanity too far. And now they were going to learn what happened when you corner a species that had clawed its way to the top of its food chain. Through millions of years of brutal evolution, the universe was about to shudder. 3 weeks passed after the burning of New Haven, and the galaxy began to notice something strange. Humanity was disappearing, not physically, of course. The 47 human colony worlds still orbited their suns. The Sol system still blazed at the heart of human territory. But everywhere else, humans were simply leaving. Merchant vessels that had carried goods between 100 different species abandoned their trade routes without explanation. Diplomats who had spent decades building relationships with alien governments packed their bags and went home. Human soldiers who served in the military forces of allied species requested immediate discharge. Walking away from careers they had spent lifetimes building, the Velthri watched this exodus with amusement. Their ambassador to the Confederation, a tall, purple-skinned creature named Lord Vareth, laughed openly at the reports. "The humans are running away," he told the other ambassadors during a council session. "They saw what happens when inferior species challenge the natural order, and they have accepted their place. Perhaps in another century they will be ready to rejoin galactic society as proper servants." The Khazari ambassador clicked her mandibles in agreement. The insectoid species had never liked humanity. They found the soft, fleshy creatures distasteful. useful only for manual labor and occasionally as a food source for their prisoner populations. Let them hide in their little corner of the galaxy, the Kezari ambassador said. When they emerge, they will find that their former trade partners have moved on. Their economy will collapse, and they will come crawling back to us, begging for scraps. The other elder races nodded along, satisfied that the human problem had resolved itself. The Confederation continued its business, and New Haven was quietly removed from official star charts as if it had never existed. But in a bunker 3 miles beneath the Rocky Mountains and Earth, a very different kind of meeting was taking place. Admiral Catherine Walsh stood at the center of a vast underground chamber. Around her sat representatives from every human colony, every military branch, every scientific institution, and every intelligence agency. Over 2,000 people filled the room. Thousands more watched through secure holographic links from locations scattered across. Human Space Catherine waited until the murmur of conversation died down, then activated the holographic display behind her. Images of New Haven filled the air, the same images that had haunted every human dream for the past 3 weeks.
OD3000.
416, Catherine said, her voice echoing through the chamber. That is the final death count. Not 70,000, as we first believed. 73,416 individual human beings. Men, women, and children who were going about their daily lives when the Velthari decided that their existence was inconvenient. She let the number hang in the air for a moment. Confederation Council released their official statement yesterday. They called the attack a regrettable territorial adjustment and recommended that humanity accept the new border arrangements. They offered no compensation, no punishment for the Velthari, not even a formal apology. A growl of anger rippled through the crowd. Catherine held up her hand for silence. For 112 years, we have been part of this confederation. We have followed their rules. We have paid their taxes. We have sent our young men and women to fight in their wars, dying for causes that had nothing to do with us. And in return, they promised us protection. They promised us a voice in galactic affairs. They promised us respect. She slammed her hand down on the podium. Those promises are worth nothing. We know that now. The elder races do not see us as equals. They do not see us as partners. They see us as useful animals who occasionally need to be reminded of our place. Catherine turned and gestured toward a door at the side of the chamber. Colonel Samuel Green walked through, followed by a team of scientists and engineers who looked exhausted but excited. Most of you do not know Colonel Green, Catherine said. He has spent the last 40 years running a project that officially does not exist. A project funded through channels that never appear on any budget. A project staffed by the brightest minds humanity has ever produced, all of whom have been working in complete secrecy since before most of you were born. Samuel stepped up beside the Admiral and activated a new holographic display. What appeared made several people in the audience gasp. It was a warship. But unlike any warship humanity had ever shown to the galaxy, sleek and deadly, it bristled with weapons that no one in the Confederation had ever seen. Its engines glowed with an energy signature that violated several supposedly fundamental laws of physics. This is the Prometheus, Samuel said. The first of her class. She can cross the entire galaxy in 3 hours. Her weapons can punch through any known shield technology. Her armor is made from materials that the elder races believe are impossible to manufacture. And she is just the beginning. He cycled through more images, fighters, bombers, carriers, dreadnoughts, an entire fleet of vessels that had been built in secret shipyards hidden in the asteroid belts of dead systems for a century. Samuel continued, We have shown the Confederation only what we wanted them to see. Slow ships with primitive drives, weak weapons that struggled to match even their civilian vessels. Technology that made us look harmless, even backward. He smiled grimly. We did this on purpose. We knew that the elder races fear anything that might challenge their dominance. We knew that if they saw our true capabilities, they would move to destroy us before we could become a threat. So we hid. We pretended to be weak. We let them laugh at us and look down on us, all while we were building the tools we would need if they ever pushed us too far. Catherine stepped forward again. They have pushed us too far. New Haven was not just an attack on a colony, it was a message. A message that said humanity does not matter, that our lives are worthless, that we can be slaughtered at will and no one will care. Her voice grew cold and hard. We are going to send a message of our own. And when we are finished, the galaxy will never forget what happens when you awaken the sleeping giant. She looked out at the sea of faces before her. Military commanders, scientists, politicians, engineers, all of them united by grief and fury and something else. Something that had been dormant in humanity for a very long time. The will to fight. Not for territory, not for resources, not for political advantage, but for survival, for dignity. For the simple right to exist without fear. Operation Awakening begins immediately, Catherine announced. All military personnel will report to their designated stations within 48 hours. All civilian populations will begin emergency preparations for possible retaliation, and all communications with non-human species will cease until further notice. She raised her hand in salute. 112 years ago, humanity reached for the stars. We found a galaxy that did not want us. A galaxy that tried to keep us small and weak and afraid. We played along because we hoped that one day they would accept us as equals. Her hand dropped to her side. That hope is dead. It died with 73,000 of our brothers and sisters on New Haven. And in its place, something new is being born. Something that the elder races have never seen before. Catherine smiled, and everyone in the room felt the temperature drop. They wanted to teach humanity a lesson. Instead, they are about to learn one, and it will be the last lesson they ever need. The chamber erupted in cheers and across human space. A species that had been pushed too far began to prepare for war. The Velthry border station, known as Nexus Prime, had stood for 3,000 years. It was a massive structure, larger than most moons. Built during an age when the Velthry Empire had been at the height of its power, 12 million soldiers called it home. Its defensive grid included over 10,000 weapon platforms, each one capable of destroying a capital ship with a single shot. Its shields could supposedly withstand the combined firepower of any fleet in the galaxy for 3 millennia. Nexus Prime had never fallen. It had survived wars, rebellions, and invasions from species that no longer existed. It was considered the greatest fortress in known space, a symbol of Velthry strength that reminded the galaxy why the purple-skinned warriors had ruled for so long. Commander Patricia. Lane looked at it through her viewport and felt nothing but cold. Determination. She stood on the bridge of the assault carrier Dawn's Edge, the first vessel of humanity's secret fleet to see combat. Behind her waited 26 other ships, crewed by men and women who had volunteered for what everyone expected to be a suicide mission. Lieutenant Christopher Hayes worked at the tactical console beside her. He was young, just 28 years old, but he had spent the last 5 years training for this exact moment in hidden facilities that the Confederation did not know existed. Commander, Christopher said, all ships report ready. The Prometheus drives are charged and standing by. Patricia nodded slowly. She could see the massive station in the distance, its lights twinkling like a small city floating in space. Sensors showed hundreds of Velthry patrol vessels moving in standard patterns around the perimeter. They had no idea what was coming. Open a channel to all ships, Patricia ordered. The communications system chirped. And suddenly, she was connected to every vessel in her small fleet. 27 ships. Fewer than 1,000 human souls against 12 million enemy soldiers. This is Commander Lane, she said, her voice steady despite the weight of the moment. In a few minutes, we are going to do something that the galaxy believes is impossible. We are going to destroy the most heavily defended station in Velthry space with a force that should not be able to scratch their paint. She paused, letting her words sink in. You all know why we are here. You all saw what they did to New Haven. You all heard the Confederation call the murder of 70,000 humans a border dispute. Today, we give our answer. Today, we show the Velthry what happens when they push humanity too far. Patricia turned to look at her crew. Every face was set with grim purpose. These were not soldiers fighting for glory or conquest. They were survivors, fighting for their right to exist. Activate the Prometheus drive, she commanded. All ships prepare for combat jump. Across the fleet, engines that the galaxy had never imagined hummed to life. The Prometheus drive was humanity's greatest secret. A technology that bent space itself to allow faster-than-light travel without the limitations of conventional jump drives. It was unstable, dangerous, and completely revolutionary, and it was about to change galactic warfare forever. Jump in 3, Christopher counted down. 2, 1. Execute. The stars blurred. Patricia felt a momentary sensation of falling, as if the entire universe had dropped away beneath her feet. Then reality snapped back into focus, and she found herself looking at Nexus Prime from less than 100 kilometers away. They were inside the defensive perimeter. Alarms immediately began blaring across the Valkyrie station. Patricia could see weapon platforms spinning toward her ships, shields flickering to life, patrol vessels scrambling to respond, but they were too slow. Far too slow. All ships, Patricia said calmly. Fire. The weapons that hum. Entity had developed in secret were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Plasma lances that burned at temperatures approaching the cores of stars, gravity projectors that compressed matter into neutron-dense spheres, electronic warfare systems that turned enemy technology against itself. 27 human ships opened fire at once, and Nexus Prime began to die. The first salvo tore through the station's shields as if they did not exist. The Valkyrie had designed their defenses to stop conventional weapons, energy beams and kinetic projectiles that followed predictable physics. They had never imagined weapons that attacked the fundamental forces holding matter together. Entire sections of the station simply collapsed, crushed by gravity fields that appeared from nowhere. Other sections exploded as plasma lances ignited their ammunition stores. Still others went dark as electronic viruses spread through their computer systems, turning defensive weapons against friendly targets. Commander
Eric of the Valkyrie Defense Command
watched from his command center as his world fell apart around him. He had served on Nexus Prime for 40 years. He had believed it was invincible. He had believed that the humans were weak, primitive creatures who would never dare challenge Valkyrie might. He was wrong. Possible, he whispered, as another section of the station exploded. This is impossible. Their ships, their weapons, where did they come from? How can they be doing this? No one answered him. His officers were too busy trying to respond to an attack that violated everything they understood about warfare. By the time they began to coordinate a counterattack, half the station was already destroyed. Patricia watched the carnage with cold satisfaction. She felt no joy in the destruction, only the grim knowledge that this was necessary. The Valkyrie had shown humanity what they truly thought of them. Now humanity was returning the favor, Commander Christopher reported. The station's core is destabilizing. We estimate total structural failure in approximately 3 minutes. Patricia nodded. All ships, prepare to withdraw. But first, open a broadcast channel. I want every species in this sector to hear what I have to say. The channel opened, and Patricia's voice carried across space to thousands of listening ears. This is Commander Patricia Lane of the Human Defense Initiative. You are watching the destruction of Nexus Prime, the greatest fortress in Valkyrie space. It took us 17 minutes. She paused, letting the image of the dying station speak for itself. 3 weeks ago, the Valkyrie Dominion burned a human colony called New Haven. They killed 73,000 of our people. Children, families, innocent Lavillians, who wanted nothing more than to live in peace. The Galactic Confederation called this a border dispute and recommended that we accept it. Her voice hardened. We do not accept it. We will never accept it. And today, we have given our answer to those who thought humanity was weak, to those who thought we would simply bow our heads and endure, to those who believed they could murder our people without consequence. Nexus Prime exploded behind her, a flower of fire blooming in the darkness of space. New Haven has been avenged. But we are not finished. To the Velthari Dominion? To the Khazari Empire? To every species that has ever looked at humanity as prey? You pushed us too far. And now, you will learn why our ancestors survived when so many other species did not. She leaned forward, and her final words carried the weight of a species awakened. You taught us that mercy is weakness. You taught us that cooperation leads to slavery. You taught us that the only way to survive in this galaxy is to be feared. Congratulations. We have learned your lessons well. And now, we are coming for you. The channel closed. The Dawn's Edge and her sister ships turned away from the expanding debris field that had once been the mightiest fortress in the galaxy and across the stars. Species who had dismissed humanity as harmless began to feel something they had not experienced in a very long time. Fear 6. Months had passed since the destruction of Nexus Prime, and the galaxy had learned to fear a species they had once dismissed as primitive. The Velthari Dominion was collapsing. Their outer territories had fallen within the first month of the war. Their core worlds were under siege by the second. By the third month, their government had begun making desperate offers of surrender that grew more generous with each passing week. But humanity was not interested in the Velthari anymore. They had made their point. The purple-skinned warriors who had burned New Haven now cowered in their remaining strongholds. Begging for peace from a species they had once called inferior, Admiral Victor Castillo had larger prey in mind. He stood on the bridge of the massive dreadnought, unconquered. A flagship of the Liberation Fleet, around him stretched an armada of 3,000 human warships, the largest military force humanity had ever assembled. Before him, visible through the vast viewport, hung the homeworld of the Khazari Empire. Khazara Prime was a desert world, harsh and unforgiving. The insectoid Khazari had evolved in its burning sands over millions of years, developing into one of the most ruthless species in the galaxy. They had built their empire on conquest and slavery, subjugating dozens of weaker species to serve as labor, entertainment, and food. For 10,000 years, no enemy had ever reached this world. The Khazari had considered themselves untouchable, protected by fleets and fortresses that made the Velthari look weak by comparison. Now those fleets were scattered, debris floating in the void, and those fortresses were cooling craters on dead moons. Commander Grace Kim worked at the intelligence console nearby. She had spent her entire career studying the Khazari, learning their language, their culture, their strengths and weaknesses. That knowledge had proven invaluable during the campaign. Admiral Grace reported, "We are receiving a transmission from the Imperial Palace. Empress Arath wishes to speak with you." "At!" Victor allowed himself a small smile. "Put her through." The holographic display flickered to life, showing the massive form of the Khazari Empress. Zareth was ancient by the standards of her species. Her carapace darkened with age, and scarred from 1,000 battles she had commanded. Her compound eyes glittered with intelligence and barely contained fury. "Human," she said, her mandibles clicking with each word, "you have destroyed my fleets. You have conquered my colonies. You stand at the gates of my homeworld with weapons that should not exist. Tell me what you want, so we can end this foolishness." Victor clasped his hands behind his back. "What I want, Empress, is very simple. I want you to surrender unconditionally. I want you to release every slave your empire has ever taken. And I want you to stand trial for crimes against sentient life, including the role your species played in the New Haven massacre." Zareth's laughter was a harsh clicking sound that made several of Victor's crew shudder. "You are insane. The Khazari have ruled this region of space for 10 millennia. Even if you destroy my homeworld, my people will survive. We have 1,000 colony worlds. You cannot hunt us all down. You cannot break us. We are eternal." Victor nodded slowly. "You misunderstand me, Empress. I have no intention of destroying your homeworld." Touched a control on his command chair, and the holographic display changed to show a map of the Khazari Empire. Highlighted across it were dozens of worlds, each one marked with a different symbol. "These are the homeworlds of the species you have enslaved over the past 10,000 years. The Marathi, the Kaleni, the Vrix, the Sunari, and 47 others. Species who have spent generations in chains, serving your empire as disposable labor. Victor leaned forward. I am not going to destroy Kasara Prime. I am going to take it. My soldiers are going to land on your world and free every slave in your capital city. And then we are going to give those slaves weapons. Human weapons. We are going to train them. We are going to teach them how to fight the way humanity fights. His smile vanished, replaced by cold determination. And then we are going to do the same thing on every Kasari world. Every colony, every outpost, every ship. We are going to arm your slaves and watch as they tear your empire apart from within. For the first time, Victor saw something flicker in Zeroth's ancient eyes. Something that looked very much like fear. You would not dare, she hissed. The other elder races would never allow it. The Confederation, Victor interrupted, no longer exists. They dissolved themselves 3 weeks ago. After we destroyed their combined fleet at the Battle of Nexus Gate, the Velthari have surrendered. The Marathi are negotiating terms. And 15 other species have already signed treaties recognizing human sovereignty and offering their assistance in bringing down your empire. He spread his hands. You are alone, Empress. The galaxy you once dominated has turned against you. The species you enslaved are rising up on worlds across your territory, armed with weapons we have been smuggling to them for months. And now you face the largest human fleet ever assembled, sitting in orbit around your homeworld with enough firepower to reduce every city on your planet to glass. Zeroth was silent for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice had lost some of its arrogance. What guarantee do I have that you will not simply destroy us anyway? Your species has shown itself capable of great cruelty. Why would you spare us when we would not have spared you? Victor considered the question carefully. Behind him, he could feel his crew watching, waiting to hear how their admiral would. Answer, because we are not you, he said finally. We did not ask for this war. We did not want it. Would have been content to live peacefully alongside the other species of this galaxy, trading and cooperating and building something better together. His voice hardened. But you would not allow that, you. And the Velthari and the other elder races looked at humanity and saw only prey. You pushed us, believing we would simply accept our fate. You burned our colonies and murdered our people, confident that we were too weak to fight back. He stepped closer to the holographic display until his face filled Zeroth's view. You were wrong. And now you have awakened something in humanity that we had tried to bury for the sake of peace. Something ancient and terrible. Something that our ancestors knew well back when we were still fighting for survival on a single dangerous world. Victor's eyes were cold as ice. We are not cruel, Empress, but we are survivors. And we will do whatever is necessary to ensure that no one ever threatens our species again. If that means destroying your empire, so be it. If that means arming your slaves and watching them take revenge for generations of suffering, so be it. If that means hunting down every Kasari who refuses to accept the new order of things, so be it. He paused. But if you surrender now, if you release your slaves and submit to trial, there might be a future for your species. A diminished future, certainly. A humbled one, but a future nonetheless. The choice is yours. The channel was silent for a very long time. Victor could see Zeroth thinking, calculating, trying to find some way to salvage her empire from the ruin that surrounded it. Finally, the ancient empress lowered her head. What are your terms? Victor felt no triumph at her surrender. It's only relief and the grim satisfaction of knowing that the war was nearly over. You will release all slaves immediately. Will disband your military forces. Will surrender all weapons of planetary destruction. You will submit to trial at a human court for crimes against sentient life. And you will pay reparations to every species you have harmed over the past 10,000 years. He straightened his uniform. In return, we will not destroy your homeworld. We will not hunt your species to extinction. And we will allow you to maintain a small defensive force to protect your remaining territories from those who might seek revenge for your past crimes. Zeroth's mandibles clicked slowly. You show more mercy than we would have shown you. Victor nodded. Yes, we do. Remember that, Empress? Remember that when you had the power, you used it for cruelty? And remember that when we had the power, we used it for justice. Perhaps that is the difference between your species and mine. The channel closed, and across the Kasari Empire, a 10,000-year reign of terror came to an end. 1 year had passed since the burning of New Haven, and the galaxy was a different place. The Great Hall of the United Human Assembly stretched before President Eleanor Price like a cathedral built for the stars. Thousands of seats rose in tiers around the central podium, filled with representatives from every human colony and every allied species that had chosen to stand with humanity during the war. Cameras broadcast her image across hundreds of worlds, carrying her words to trillions of beings who had once dismissed humanity as insignificant. Eleanor was a small woman, barely 5 feet tall, with gray hair and wrinkled hands that spoke of a life spent in service. She had been a diplomat before the war, spending decades trying to build bridges between humanity and the elder races. She had believed in cooperation. She had believed in peace. New Haven had shattered those beliefs, and from the ashes, something new had been born. She stepped up to the podium and looked out at the sea of faces before her, human and alien alike, united by a shared experience that had transformed them all. 1 year ago today, Eleanor began, her voice carrying clearly through the vast chamber. The Velthari Dominion attacked a human colony called New Haven. 73,416 of our people died that day. Children playing in schoolyards, parents working to provide for their families, elderly citizens enjoying the peace they had earned through lifetimes of labor. She paused, letting the weight of that number settle over the assembly. The Galactic Confederation, the organization we had trusted to protect us, called this massacre a border dispute. They recommended that we accept the new territorial arrangements and move on. They expected us to bow our heads and accept that human lives simply did not matter to the galaxy. Eleanor's eyes swept across the crowd. They were wrong. A murmur of agreement rippled through the assembly. Eleanor held up her hand for silence. In the years since New Haven, humanity has done what many believed impossible. We have defeated the Velthari Dominion, forcing them to surrender after centuries of ruling through fear and violence.
We have
Dismantled the Khazari Empire, freeing 53 species from 10,000 years of slavery. We have dissolved the Confederation Council that failed us and built a new alliance based on equality and mutual respect. She gestured toward the sections of the hall where non-human delegates sat watching. Today we welcome our new partners. The Marathi, who stood with us when others cowered. The Kaleni, who provided intelligence that helped us win crucial battles. The Vrix, who gave their lives fighting alongside human soldiers for the freedom of their people. And 47 other species who chose to believe that a better galaxy was possible. Admiral Catherine Walsh sat in the front row, her uniform decorated with medals from a dozen battles. Beside her was Rear Admiral Daniel Morris, the man who had been the first to call for action after New Haven. Maria Reyes sat nearby. Now, Captain herself, commanding one of the newest vessels in the human fleet. Eleanor looked at them and felt a swell of pride mixed with sorrow. The war is over, she said. We have won. But victory has come at a terrible cost. We have lost friends and family on battlefields scattered across the galaxy. We have done things that we never imagined we would have to do. We have shown the universe a side of humanity that we had hoped to keep buried forever. Her voice grew quiet. The galaxy once knew us as peaceful, cooperative, eager to please, and desperate for acceptance. They saw these qualities as weakness. They believed that our kindness made us prey. Eleanor straightened, and her voice grew stronger. They learned otherwise. They learned that humanity's kindness was a choice, not a limitation. They learned that behind our smiles and our handshakes was a species that had clawed its way to dominance on a world that tried to kill us every day for millions of years. They learned that when you push us too far, when you threaten our survival, when you murder our children and expect us to simply accept it, something wakes up inside us. She leaned forward, her hands gripping the edges of the podium. Our ancestors called it many things. The will to survive, the fighting spirit, the refusal to give up no matter how dark the night became. It is written into our very genes. Carved into our souls by countless generations of struggle against a hostile universe, Eleanor's eyes blazed with quiet intensity. The elder races forgot what that kind of determination looks like. They had grown comfortable in their power, believing that their technology and their numbers made them invincible. They forgot that numbers mean nothing when you face an enemy who will not stop. They forgot that technology fails when you face a species that adapts faster than you can respond. They forgot that empires built on cruelty always fall, because those they abuse eventually find the strength to rise up. She smiled, and there was both warmth and steel in her expression. Humanity taught them, and now the universe shudders when it remembers what we are capable of. The hall was utterly silent. Every eye was fixed on the small woman at the podium, hanging on her every word. "But let me be clear about something," Eleanor continued. "We did not fight this war because we wanted power. We did not destroy empires because we desired conquest. We did not free the enslaved species of this galaxy because we wanted them to serve us instead of their former masters." She opened her hands in a gesture of inclusion. "We fought because we had no choice. We destroyed empires because they would not stop trying to destroy us. We freed the enslaved because no being should live in chains. And because we remember what it felt like to be looked down upon by those who considered themselves our superiors." Eleanor looked out at the mixed crowd of humans and aliens, all of them watching her with hope in their eyes. "The old order is dead. The confederation that failed us has been swept away. The empires that ruled through fear have crumbled. And in their place, we will build something new, something better, an alliance of equals, where every species has a voice. A community where the strong protect the weak instead of exploiting them. A galaxy where no child will ever again burn because someone decided their people did not matter." She raised her hand, and her final words rang through the chamber like a bell. To every being watching this broadcast, let this be understood. Humanity does not seek to rule the galaxy. We do not desire the throne that the Velthari and the Kessari built on the backs of the suffering. We want only what we have always wanted, the freedom to live in peace, to explore the stars, to build a future for our children and our children's children. Her voice hardened one final time. "But we will never again allow ourselves to be prey. We will never again watch our people burn while the galaxy offers empty condolences. We will never again trust our survival to those who see us as inferior." Eleanor looked at Catherine Walsh, at Daniel Morris, at Maria Reyes, at all the men and women who had sacrificed so much to bring humanity to this moment. "They pushed us too far," she said quietly. "And now the universe has learned to shudder at what humanity can become when we have nothing left to lose." She lowered her hand. "May the galaxy remember this lesson well, because we will never let them forget it." The chamber erupted in applause that seemed to shake the very foundations of the building. Humans and aliens alike rose to their feet, united in celebration of a new beginning that had been purchased with blood and fire and across the galaxy. Species who had once dismissed humanity as harmless looked up at the stars with new eyes. They saw a universe transformed, remade by a species that had been pushed to the brink, and had emerged stronger than anyone had imagined possible. The age of humanity had begun, and the universe would never forget the lesson it had learned. Never push humanity too far, because when you corner a species that has survived ice ages and plagues, world wars and nuclear nightmares, a species that has looked into the abyss of extinction and refused to blink, you do not break them, you only make them angry, and an angry humanity was something the galaxy had never seen before until now.